On the KT, live keyboard playing can be transposed up by a maximum of 5 semitones or down by a maximum of 6 semitones. The KT's powerful built-in signal processor can produce a variety of effects. Anytime you want to modify or change the effect associated with a particular sound, you will first need to enter the Edit Sound mode. Before we do this, let's go back to our tutorial sound. Press the bank button, then press the upper 7 button and the lower 9 button. Now, enter the Edit Sound mode by pressing the Edit Sound button. As with all KT mode buttons, the LED will light to indicate that the KT is in that mode. Note that the Edit Sound button is labeled with red text. On the KT, the red text indicates the button's function when you're in the Edit Sound mode. Similarly, the blue text indicates the function when you're in the Edit Sequence Preset mode. Press the upper 8 button. Then press the lower 0 button and hold it for a few seconds. The words "Warm Chamber" will be flashing, meaning that this area of the display is selected for editing. Now press the Up Value button 3 times. A new display appears with the words EQ, DDL, Reverb slowly flashing. Play a few keys on the keyboard. Can you hear how much richer and bigger tutorial sound has become? That's because we've changed its effect. Originally, our sound had a subtle reverberation type effect. Now, we've added an equalizer, a chorus, and a bigger reverb. After you've modified a sound and have it just the way you want it, you'll want to save it. Press the Save button. The display shows you the name of the sound you've modified. This is the screen on which you'll give your sound a name. Press the right cursor button once. The cursor moves underneath the T in tutorial sound. Let's call our new sound Synth Breath. Using the up and down value buttons, change the T to an S. Then move the cursor underneath the U and change it to a Y. You can also use the data entry slider to change a letter. When you want to make a blank space in a name, as in the space where the I was in tutorial sound, simply slide the data entry slider all the way down. Continue until you have spelled Synth Breath. When you're done, press the Save button again. The display shows the location into which your new sound will be saved. In this case, the same position tutorial sound occupied, thus replacing it. You can change the location to which the sound is saved by using the upper and lower 0 through 9 buttons. But for this example, let's accept the default and replace tutorial sound. Press the Save button one more time to confirm the location and carry out the Save Sound procedure. You've just edited and saved your first sound. From now on, or until you reinitialize the KT, Synth Breath will be in the internal sound bank on page 79. As you begin to create your own unique sounds on the KT, you'll undoubtedly use presets. Presets are handy performance memories that allow you to save combinations of sounds, splits, layers, and more for convenient recall at a later time. Presets also form the basis for sequences, which we'll be covering in a few minutes. Creating presets on the KT is easy. Let's try one. Press the lower 1 button. We've just selected the sound, Swell Harp. You may want to play a few notes to familiarize yourself with the way it sounds. Now, press the Make Default Preset button. Notice that two lights are active in the sequencer preset track area of the control panel. The button underneath the number 1 is lit, and the number 5 button is flashing. Press the second sequencer preset track button. It's the sound we created, synth breath. Then press the first sequencer preset track button. It's the sound, swell harp. Press the replace track sound button, and then the upper 1 button and the lower 4 button. This displays the sound fretless bass. Press the replace track sound button again. Then double-click the second button. Now when you play the keyboard, both sounds will play. We've just layered or stacked two sounds. Now let's create a keyboard split. Press the Edit Track button. Then hold down the lower 2 button until A0 is flashing on the bottom line of the display. Play the middle C on the keyboard. The A0 changes to a C4. Notice also that C8 is flashing. Play the highest key on the keyboard. This changes the C8 to the note you just played. Play up the keyboard from the bottom. Synth breath is now playing only in the key range we specified. Press the first sequencer preset track button. Now hold down the lower 2 button until A0 is flashing on the bottom line of the display. Play the lowest key on the keyboard. The A0 changes to the note you just played. Notice also that C8 is flashing. Play the B key that is next to the middle C. The C8 changes to B3. Play up the keyboard from the bottom. Fretless bass is now playing only in the key range we specified. Now press the Select Sequence Preset button. The display shows the location in the sequence preset memory where we've been working. Play up and down the keyboard. Below middle C, fretless bass plays. Above middle C, synth breath plays. This is called a split. Let's rename the preset we've just created. Press the Edit Sequence Preset button. Then press the upper 4 button and the lower 4 button. This display lets us rename our preset. Press the Enter button. Use the cursor buttons in combination with the up and down value buttons or the data entry slider to name your preset Two Sounds. Take a moment to do this now. When you're finished, press the Enter button. The display confirms that the command was successful. Now that we've renamed our preset, let's save it for future recall. Press the Select Preset Sequence button. Doing this will put the KT in the Select Sequence Preset mode. Press the lower 1 button. This display asks you if you want to save your changes. Press the Yes button. Your preset is now saved to the bank and page number indicated on the screen, and it will remain there until you reinitialize the KT. For information about saving data to external storage media so it won't be lost when you reinitialize the keyboard, consult your musician's manual. After you've explored the sounds, worked with modulators, and created a few presets, you're probably anxious to get started creating sequences and songs. Before we do, though, let's first see how we select and play existing sequences. On the KT, the procedure for selecting sequences is identical to the procedure for selecting sounds and presets. Make sure you're in the Select Sequence Preset mode. If you're not, simply press the Select Sequence Preset button so that its LED is lit. Next, press the lower 0 button. This selects Tutorial Sequence. If you want to hear the sequence, press play. Press stop when you're finished. The process of creating your own sequence begins with selecting a location in memory. Press the lower 2 button. The display confirms that the currently selected location is available for use. Press the Enter button. The next display prompts you to confirm the location of your new sequence. Press the Yes button. This display asks you to specify the time signature of your sequence. Let's leave it as it is. Press the Yes button twice. The next display that appears is the one on which you give a name to your sequence. Use the cursor buttons in conjunction with the value buttons or the data entry slider to name your sequence. Let's call it My Sequence. When you're finished, press the Enter button. Now that we've picked a location for our sequence and provided it with a name, we're ready to record the first track. Before you record each track, you'll have to pick a sound to record with. Begin by pressing the Replace Track Sound button. The display shows you that the sound Swell Harp is currently assigned to the first track. Using the upper and lower 1 through 9 buttons, select a sound. You can play keys to audition each sound before selecting it for recording. For this example, let's select Studio Guitar on page 00 of the internal sound bank. Do this by pressing the upper 0 button and the lower 0 button. Then press the Replace Track Sound button again to complete the process. Now you're ready to record your first track. While holding down the Record button, press play. The sound you're hearing is the metronome, and it will continue clicking until you stop recording. The higher-pitched click is the downbeat. When you're ready, begin playing. When you finish, immediately press stop. The KT responds by asking you if you want to keep the number of bars you've played. If you want to hear your track, press play. The sequence will play over and over until you press stop. Press